Hey there everyone, welcome to the live stream or to the recording later. I'm Josh Justice, aka Coding It Wrong, and as always, you will have to watch to see if you agree that I'm coding it wrong. We're here for another JavaScript test-driven development stream today, and I'm super pumped about it. I just gotta say, I love test-driven development. Now, to be honest, I don't do it all the time. Maybe I should do it more, I don't know. I don't always reach for it, but anytime I have a function that's processing data and it's more than trivial, I definitely reach for testing, and I definitely reach for test-driven development. There's just so many benefits to it, and we're going to get to see some of them today. Let me say the benefits to learning TDD. So by learning TDD, whether you do it all the time or not, you're going to learn better how to think in units, to split up your code into small pieces and to understand very clearly what each one's doing. Those units will have better interfaces because you'll be thinking about the inputs and the outputs and how to call them easily. Edge cases, you'll be able to cover the edge cases and know with great confidence that you've got them covered, as well as being able to think of them more easily. You'll also end up with minimal code. Test-driven development helps you write minimal code to start out and also encourages you to refactor to reduce that code down as well. You will be encouraged and helped to work in small steps. It's so hard to do that. But with test-driven development, you learn the discipline of moving in small steps, which I'm finding super helpful every single day in working on challenging stuff at work. Testable code, you get testable code because the code is testable to begin with. You don't write the code until you can write a test for it. And you get loose coupling because your code is isolated and works well in isolation. Tons and tons of benefits, so I highly recommend it. And we're going to jump in and do some test-driven development here together. I want to show the exercise we're doing today. It's called Name Normalizer. I want to give a shout out to my friend John Reed. He is the unit testing and test-driven development person in the iOS world, hands down. He's written a book. Just today, he's put out a survey about a course he wants to do online. So if you're in the Apple world, the iOS development world, definitely check him out. But he pointed to this repo that is cross-language. It's called Name Normalizer. It's got exercises in JavaScript, all kinds of other languages as well. So let your friends know that work on other platforms to check it out, or feel free to code along in JavaScript or in one of these other languages if you want. You can do it live on the stream. You can do it if you're watching this video later. Maybe you want to pause the video, give these exercises a try yourself, and then jump in and then see what I did. I'm going to post a link into the chat, and it'll be in the video notes in the future as well. So this is where the repo is. You can pull down the Name Normalizer repo. One of the nice things about this exercise, it's a paint by numbers exercise, which means the tests are already written for us, and we're going to walk through them one at a time as an example and an instruction for the kinds of TDD tests you might write. Also, we got some nice instructions here. So this is a great exercise to pull from if you haven't done TDD before. You can kind of follow along these instructions, and I'm going to try to call back to them as we go to make sure we follow along. So to share the way, and I should say thanks to the author as well, Jeff Langer. Jeff, thank you so much for this free repo. We really appreciate it. So let's read the instructions he has here. So what we're going to focus on, we're going to write no more code than needed to pass a test. I've got a blog post coming out soon but talking about why that is the case, why it's so helpful. If the test passes immediately, it's likely you wrote too much code in a prior step, so we have a warning about that. We'll come back to that if we need to, if we make that mistake. And then refactor. With each passing test, ensure that you clean the code up and make it as readable as possible. And given that Jeff has specifically prepared this exercise for TDD, I'm assuming there's going to be good opportunities to do that. So we're going to try that. We've got the instructions here. We're going to follow one step at a time. And so yeah, let's go for it. So first, ensure that the topmost test is enabled. Ensure it's not commented out, disabled, or otherwise marked as ignored. So we're going to switch over here. I've got the tests open up at the top and the production code, at the bottom, and I'm just going to hide the test to help keep us focused. So we're just looking at one test at a time. So we have one test that's enabled here with an it. The others have an X in front of it. We're using jest for our JavaScript tests here, and so XIT means it's X'd out, it's disabled. So we're going to skip it and then enable one of them at a time. Second, run your unit testing tool. So this is going to be jest, as I said. The command for that is just yarn test. This is all in the information of the repo, so you can check it out if you're doing this. We run these tests here. They run. We get a 1 failed test and 8 skipped, so that's great. We're doing just one at a time. And we see here our first test is failing. One note I will say, if you're live on the stream, please say hello in the chat. If you'd like to, love to hear that you're there, hear where you're from, what you work in, what kind of apps you work on, and any questions or feedback, ideas, suggestions you have. Or if you're watching this afterwards, please leave a comment in the video. We'd love to hear from you. All right, so we ran the test. Did the test you just enabled fail? Yes, great. Next, make sure you're clear on why the test failed. Well, name normalizer, it says it returns empty when passed an empty string. So we expect that if we pass in an empty string, we get an empty string back as the name, but we're getting a wah instead. And they put this in the sample code to make sure that the first test fails. So that's nice. The hard-coded response is what we're getting back. So we're clear on why the test failed. Now we want to write only enough code to make that failing test pass. And this, know where any TDD instructor is going with this. They're going to want us to just run a hard-coded value in here. So we're going to try to get this test to pass. We're going to say, okay, if we expect an empty string back, we're just going to take an empty string there. We're going to save the file, and the way jest works is going to automatically rerun our test after this. And I expect our test is going to pass when we return this hard-coded empty string. And it passes. So this is great. This is progress. So let's go back to our instructions here. If there's a second commented out assertion in any test, uncomment it. So that's not happening, so that's all good. And then repeat the prior steps until no more methods exist. And I think he did not mention refactoring in this list, but we'll be sure to refactor. So we don't want to make things more generalized here. We want to let our tests drive us to it. So let's go on to the next one. Obviously, this is not our final version, our final version of the code, but we're going to let our tests drive us to that point, or let our tests specify how we want it to behave. And I have not done this exercise before. I've skimmed over it to make sure it would be a good fit for the stream, but I'm learning this as we go. So I have no idea where we're going to end up implementation-wise. We're just going to have to see together. All right, so our next test here, we're going to uncomment it or reactivate it. It returns a single word name. We save our test file, the test automatically reruns, and we can see that our first test is passing, our previous one is still passing, but our new test we've newly activated is now failing. And so it returns a single word name. So now when we pass in Play-Doh, we expected to get Play-Doh back, but instead we're getting the empty string back. All right, so we need to handle this case as well, but only these two cases. And in this case, I can see a way to pass both of these. It's pretty straightforward. We're just going to actually use the name argument that was passed in. We're going to return it. And we save, and our tests are running, and they pass. Empty string gives us back an empty string, and Play-Doh gives us back Play-Doh. This as well, I imagine, is not going to be our final code, but that's okay. The point is, I'm commenting on this here. This is absolutely normal for test-driven development. Maybe a little bit smaller steps than you might take for real, but it's great for instruction. So let's check our next test here. It swaps first and last names. So now things are getting a little fancy. Not that fancy, but a little bit fancy. We're going to activate this test, save, and let it run and let it fail. In the test-driven development loop, you want to go through red, green, refactor. So first red, we watch the test fail. Then green, we write the most straightforward code we can to pass the test. And then we refactor. We adjust the code to be the simplest possible representation of what we have. All right, so in this case, it is reversing the name. When the name has a space in it, is what it seems to me, we're splitting it up and reversing it. So that seems good. And if we split a string that has no spaces or has no characters, I think it's going to work fine as well. So let's just check. I need to pull up our dev docs, which is my API doc, not mine, somebody else's project, but API documentation I love to use. And we're going to pull up our JavaScript here, and just to make sure we got the right API, string.split. Splits a string, and you add the character you want to split on. Space will work for us. That's the most straightforward way to implement this right now, so let's do it. So we're going to take the name, we're going to split it on a space. Oops, I'm zooming ahead. Split it on a space, and then we're going to join the array we get back with, actually we want to reverse it, right? So let's look at that API. There's a reverse. Even JavaScript has a reverse method. So, I mean, what I mean to say, even JavaScript, as small, as minimal as the standard library is, it still does have a reverse method, so that's nice. So we can just reverse it. And we're going to join again, this time with comma space. So my theory is that this is going to pass all the tests. Let's save and try and find out. All right, they all pass. So we're getting Murakami Haruki with a comma space in between, and Plato is plain and empty string is plain. So we're fine there. We're good to go. Let's check those instructions again to make sure I'm not zooming ahead too much. So to do the test you just enabled fail. Yep, read only enough code to make that failing test pass. I hope I'm doing that. And then, so yeah, one thing we're going to do is to keep an eye out when we enable our tests to make sure that they fail every time. And if not, maybe we went too far. Because in this case, this exercise has been specifically designed to challenge you to take small steps. So let's activate the next test. It trims leading and trailing white space. So big boy with a space at the front, a space at the back, should be boy, comma, big. Save this test. We're going to watch it hopefully fail. It does fail. Oh yeah, and it fails crazy. We've got all kinds of spaces here split up and joined, lots and lots of commas. So that's not what we want. We want to ignore that leading and trailing space, and I'll bet you there's a trim. String.trim. Removes white space from both ends of a string. Nice. All right, so I'll bet you if we trim, that's going to do nothing for those other strings. And for this one, I think it's going to give us a nice big boy, big isolated boy. We're going to be able to reverse it, and we'll be good to go. Save this, update to the production code. And it passes. So trimming did not cause a problem up here. No need to belabor that point too much. Let's just move on. Initializes middle name. Initializes. Oh, and as a programmer, I read initializes and I think it's creating it, it's setting up the initial values. No, it's turning it into an initial. All right, well, I'm glad we got the body of that to explain to us what's happening. Henry David Thoreau becomes Thoreau Henry D. So it's interesting. You think about this, like if you're not doing test-driven development, you might look at these examples and really try to generalize it and kind of do everything at once. Like, should we remove extra spaces in the middle? If there's multiple names, should we initialize them? If David is not capitalized, should we capitalize it, capitalize the other things? You can get yourself into analysis paralysis and get to the point where you just, you're building stuff you don't need. And so test-driven development lets you say, hey, if you need something, specify it in a test, and that way you're sure that you need it, that it's worth your time, and you're sure that it'll keep working again in the future. So let's run this here with initializing the middle name, and we'll see how it goes. It fails, which is what we want. We want to see that red. And so now let's go in here. We're getting Thoreau David Henry. And so not only is it not turning it into an initial, it's actually adding a comma between each element. And it looks like here, the first thing we want is we only want a comma between the first and the rest. So yeah, let's see here. What is going to be the best way to do this? Well, it's not just going to be a single expression anymore, at least not the easiest way I can think of. So let's go back. And this is not in the instructions, but one thing you can do is if you find, oh, I need to refactor my existing code, what you can do is go back and skip the test that you're on again to back when everything is still passing, and then you make changes. And so that way you can be sure that as you're refactoring preparing for this next test that's going to fail, but you are keeping all the tests passing in the meantime. So you want to refactor under green. I see a message in the chat, so I'm going to pause and answer that message. Daydream says, hey man, I'm just starting to get into learning React.js. Do you think it's a technology worth putting time and effort into learning? Yeah, totally. I use React in my current production project, my client project right now. I like it a lot. I'm kind of indecisive, and so I like Vue.js as well. I like Ember.js for my personal project, actually. But yeah, React.js, it's a great front-end framework. I call it the lingua franca of the front end. So if you learn React, I mean, just about every front-end developer is going to know React. You can correspond with anyone. You can get into other front-end libraries there as well. And since you asked, I was going to mention at the end, I actually have a free online book in testing in React as well as in Vue.js. It's called Outside In Front-End Development. I'm going to post that link in the chat. If you're just getting into learning React, this tutorial assumes that you know React. So check out other React tutorials, check out the docs or online courses. But once you're at the point where you're like, hey, okay, I've got React, I'm kind of working okay in React, and I want to jump into testing. I want to see how testing could fit in my workflow. Outside in front-end development, my free online book can help out a lot with that. There's some intro concepts about testing, and then there's a whole extended exercise in React through multiple steps. And I just put this out here because I care a lot about testing and want to help people out. So yeah, React is great, so Daydream, check it out. And yeah, if you decide to come back to check out my book here, I hope it's helpful. No sign up or anything like that, just want to help people out. So yeah, thanks for joining. I hope the stream is entertaining to you and helpful to you. Yeah, our tests, my exercise here today is just JavaScript, not any particular framework. So these principles here are going to apply to React or anything else in JavaScript. On future streams, it's likely that I'm going to do some React or Vue or something else because I just do a bunch of front-end development as well. So, but we got transferable skills today. It's going to work anywhere in your JavaScript. All right, so we are going to be refactoring. We're going to be adjusting our code to prepare for this situation where we add the comma only before the first element there. So how can we do this? Up until this point, we just took our whole array of elements, reversed the whole thing, and joined it together. But I don't think we want to do that anymore. So let's do this refactoring a little bit of a step at a time. First, we'll say names, maybe. Say name.trim.split, so names is our array. And so now, instead of changing anything, I'm just going to plug in names there. So I've got the same functionality that we've been doing. I'm going to go ahead and save and make sure our tests still pass. This is why we backed up to green, so that we can take these small steps and make sure that things continue to pass all the way along. So now what we found is previously we were reversing the whole array, but we found that not only do we not need to do that, we don't want to do that. All we want to do is take the very last name and put it on the front. So let's create a new variable for that. Names with last name first. I don't know, maybe we change the name of the variable later, but that works okay for now. Now we're going to need to use like slice or something. I can never remember this stuff in JavaScript, and this is one of the reasons I love unit tests, is because I can very easily confirm, am I using these APIs correctly? Do I have all the edge cases handled? So let's see string.slice. I don't want to change the string, so I'm going to use these immutable functions here, these immutable methods. Extracts a section of the string, so the beginning index. So yeah, I think what we want to do with last name first is, there's not a string dot array dot, wait, array, not, no, we don't want a string, this is array stuff, we're working with array. There's not an array dot last. So I'm going to say last name and just give it a nice descriptive name there. That's names at names.length -1. So that should hopefully be our last name. And then our names with last name first is going to be last name. And then hopefully we have a array spread operator. That would be nice. Hopefully that's the case. Here we're going to say names dot I typed splice. Slice is what I wanted, but my brain typed splice. I don't know why. Okay, I think, yeah, if we just do slice 1, that's going to be all the elements from the first. I can never remember these APIs. And so now I think this is names with last name first. And so we're going to, we don't want to reverse that anymore. And actually, we don't want to join the whole thing either. All we want to do, yeah, so actually this is totally wrong. What we want to return is, let's do a string literal here. Yeah, let's do that. So last name, a template string literal, I should say, comma, space, and then we're going to have, I want to give this a name. Names other than last. Names slice 1. So we have last name and names other than last. And we want to do names other than last join with a space in between. All right, so now I think this is going to do it. This is going to adjust things. Our existing tests here are still going to pass, but this is going to only add the comma in the front there, not in front of the others. It's interesting. You could have had a test. Well, no, I guess this initialization, this would need to happen here. Okay. Yeah, so I think this will cause these other tests to continue to pass. So let's save and see if that's the case. No, everything is blown up. And so this is very good that we've done this to back up and find out what went wrong. All right, well, empty string is not being handled, so that makes sense because that's being split together in a wrong way. Comma is being added to Play-Doh. Everyone, I've thought about this completely wrong. I'm so sorry. But this is great. This kind of thing happens with test-driven development. So let's see here. Murakami. So that's not right. That did not do what we expected. That's really interesting. Names length, I don't know, one. Okay, so let's, a TDD purist might say that we should back up, undo our change here, and start over again. But I think I'm gonna go from here because these test cases are all different enough that I'm gonna add one at a time. So I'm gonna say split. I'm gonna say if names length is less than or equal to 1, return name. So if there's 1 or 0 name elements in there, we're just going to return the original string. And I think this will get the first 2 tests passing. So let's see. Runs, they do. That's great. Okay, so now we need to think about Murakami and Boy. This is a great name. I love this test. Man, I need other people to come up with our exercises here. This is a lot funnier than if I would have written this. All right, so we need to fix Boy. We need to fix Murakami. Amadeus. We need to figure out why. Names slice 1. Slice, you have abandoned me. You have failed me. So if names is animals, slice 2, ant, bison, camel. I would have thought names other than last. Oh yeah, so let's look here. Haruki Murakami. So last name is correct. Murakami is ending up on there. And what about the other names? Am I skipping? Oh yeah, here's what's going on. I'm skipping the first name. So I'm skipping Haruki, and that's not right. So I need to skip just the last name. Let's see how to do that. Start, end. End is omitted. A negative index can be used indicating an offset from the end of the sequence. All right, so I think that'll help. Very glad we have tests to figure that out. So we're going to start at the start, index 0, and we're going to go until -1. Slice type methods are totally useless when they don't take negative indexes, so luckily this one takes a negative index. I think this will fix it for both cases. Let's see. Yeah, we're good. Okay, great. I think we still need this names length check here, so let me just comment it out to make sure that everything still fails. This is back in the refactoring phase again, where we see how we can do it. And if that's the case, we do it there. Maybe we could do some magic to take some lines out and incorporate this down below, but I think this is just a simpler expression of the code here to say we're just bailing out early. Also, I don't really want an if-else block here. This is what's called a guard clause structure, where you bail out of a function early when you have sort of an exception case. The normal case is to handle this juggling, but the exception case is when the names are too short and we're going to bail out. So we get our names, we get the last name and the names other than last, and then we stick them together. So I think this is a really good expression of things. Maybe I'm going to add a line break there to just kind of express. Like first we get our names here, then we get the pieces of it, and then we kind of put them back together at the end. So now our refactoring is done. I'm feeling good enough about this. And so now we have refactored under green, so we could see very quickly. Luckily, I screwed up, and so we were able to see how the helpfulness of being able to get back to green. Now we're going to uncomment that test again to see if we're in a better shape, if we're closer and better prepared to be able to make this test pass. Initializes middle name. All right, so now we have Thoreau Henry, instead of Thoreau Henry D, we have Thoreau Henry David. So now we're closer. The structure with just the single comma at the start is better, and now we just need to initialize that other name. And I think this this array is going to help us here to get there. I think what we can actually do is to split, I don't even know. I don't know what the deal is. Is it all the other names? Is it just the middle name? All I know from the test name here is that it's just the middle name we need to initialize. So I think there's a couple different ways we could go, because I've already decided we want to keep all the names other than the last. And so I think what I'm going to do is pull out the first name separately, but keep multiple middle names in the middle and just kind of go from there. So let's try that. And actually, let's deactivate this test again and refactor under green one more time. We'll say pull out first name, name 0. Actually, when you really want to take small steps, you can save in the middle, even when you just have these unused variables added, just to make sure that nothing's blown up. This way you can take these very small steps. And you can say, well, this could be trouble though if there's multiple middle names with spaces and stuff like that. So let's say middle names equals names slice 1, -1. This could cause problems for something else, like if there's not any middle names. So we're going to find out. So names other than last. We're going to say first name, middle names. I expect that this will still pass all the tests. It does, so that's great. And so now we have the first name and the middle names pulled out separately. So let's enable that test again, initialize his middle name. It's failing still. And now we're prepared. Now we have these middle names. So now we could say, let's get middle initials. We get middle names, map. Just a one-letter variable is probably fine there. Let's say just a substring. I never remember the difference between substr and substrings. Is one of these like deprecated or something? I thought I read that. Slice. Man, I don't know. This is part of the point of refactoring. Substr seems silly, so I'm just going to use substring. Index start, index end. All right, so we'll do n substring. Start at the start and then end at 1. And then we're going to join that to add a little period there. And so now middle initials, we're going to join together here. So I expect that this is going to pass the test. Again, we are kind of doing more work because we're mapping over multiple middle initials when the one isn't there. So in retrospect, probably we could have just pulled out one extra name. I kind of found it easier to not have the conditionals though. So maybe someone else would lead you through smaller steps, but this is me. This is what you get. Maybe you like it because it's not too small a step. All right. Now, it confirms here it does not initialize a one-letter middle name. So let's see if this test passes or fails. It fails, so that's great. Harry S. Truman. Apparently S is actually, his middle name is actually the letter S. Harry Z. Truman. And so if that's the case, don't add the period on the end of it. Don't initialize it. All right, so we need a conditional here. I could do like a ternary or something, but let's make it a block. It's going to be easier if we make it a block. Turn. I don't feel the need to like disable this test and refactor this under test. I think this is fine. So we say if n, does a string have a length? I don't know JavaScript. I was typing LavaScript there. I don't know LavaScript. Is LavaScript a programming language? It needs to be. No, I want LavaScript. Show me LavaScript. LavaScript. Start ruining programming languages names. JIT compilation technique. Vinay CS50, thank you for asking. I need to find a way to make it easier for folks to see that. So I'm going to stick that into the footer next time. But we're doing a test-driven development exercise. It's called Name Normalizer. I'm going to post that link in the chat again. So this is an exercise where we're walked through these steps to test drive a function. It's a way of learning test-driven development. And these exercises are actually available in JavaScript, Java, Kotlin, all kinds of other languages. So you can feel free to pull it down there and go through it live. Or check it out, try it out yourself afterwards and see what it's like. But yeah, so we're doing this as a way of learning test-driven development, especially being walked through by somebody who's specifically prepared this exercise to give us kind of challenges as we go. And shout out one more time to Jeff Langer for preparing this repo. Appreciate it. So Vinay CS50, glad you're here. Hope it's enjoyable. So we have this condition here where if n length is greater than 1, we want to return a substring, but otherwise we just want to return n by itself. Don't substring it, which is not needed. Don't add a period at the end. So I believe that this is going to cause the test to pass. And it does. So now I think we're maybe starting to get to the point where we could do some refactoring. Maybe it would have been better to do that already. This function feels like an initialize. I feel like the idea of not adding a period on the end falls within the purview of like initializing. And there's enough going on in this function here that I think we could pull that out. So now that we're under green, let's do that refactor step. Let's pull this function out. They're using arrow functions. We'll just follow suit there. Const initialize. And now this name n, well, we'll come back to that. I think that name n is not great. So now we can just say map initialize. We save to watch the tests again to make sure that they still pass, and they do still pass, so that's great. So now that this function is pulled out, I don't think n is a descriptive enough variable now that it's not inline. So I want to take that. And this is a text editor. This isn't an IDE, so I got to make these changes myself. I have to say name, and I have to say name. Although actually ESLint is helping me out a bit, so that's kind of nice. Name. So that is a bit more descriptive there. So that's very nice. You know, honestly, I like Ruby. Ruby's a cool programming language. Ruby has a first method on arrays and a last method. And I think that's kind of nice. So maybe, I don't know, just for a little expressiveness, maybe I'll add a little first and last functions here just to get these first and last elements. So first array returns array 0. Y'all who aren't Rubyists think this is ridiculous. Maybe Lisp people, functional programming people might like this. So first of the names. And that passes. Now let's make a last. Length -1 is always just so tedious for me to write. And note that I'm naming the argument here array, because this could work for any array. We could extract this out to something totally different in the future. And then middle. I don't know. I don't really know of a great way to say that. So I think slice is fine. I think that's a good level of abstraction. But like, notice, like, I'm refactoring here to try to bring this function up to a bit of a higher level of abstraction. I do not care in name normalization how it is that I get the last name. I just want to say, give me the last of the names. So I like having first, and I like having last, and I like having test-driven development so that I can think about these kind of refactorings, these extracting of functions, and I can put them in easily instead of having to think about them from the start. So what else? It's like, this is kind of formatting related, but like the fact that I'm reversing the names and getting the names other than last, that's kind of formatting related, so maybe I'll put that down there. And they like initials. I don't know, like maybe I could pull out and just getting the middle initials, but I don't know if I care about the middle initials. I don't even know if that's actually the right abstraction, or if different tests are going to lead us in a different direction. So, you know, this function's a little long. We could probably make it shorter. I think it's probably fine for now. All right, great. So our refactoring has proceeded. So now we're going to go on to this next function here. It initializes each of multiple middle names. Run this test, hoping. Oh no! So this is a problem. So our test passed as soon as we activated it. So the instructions for this exercise that's trying to teach us TDD said, did the test you just enabled fail? If not, you built too much code in a prior step. I'm so sorry. Like, let's figure this out together. Undo work for your prior tests and try again. So, no judgment of Jeff. I want to learn. I want to be challenged. I want you to learn and be challenged in test-driven development as well. So I feel like the path we went through was kind of natural. It was actually easier for me. Well, let's think about why. Let's think about what's going on here, and verbalize this. It turns multiple middle names into initials instead of just one. So I was doing more work by already turning multiple names into initials, and I didn't have direction that I needed to do that. I think the thing is, if I had not done that, so let me just make some excuses for a minute here. If I had not done that, I would have had to do like null checking and stuff like that, and I would have found that a little bit more challenging to do. So that was actually more work. I think I actually did it this way for it to be kind of less work. But for the sake of argument, let's just go back and give it one try. Just one try to see if there's a way that we could have done less work. So this is good for learning purposes. So we're going to go back, we're going to deactivate that test again, and we're going to change initialize here. So instead, let's do a different variable. Let's say const middle names with only the first initialized. Even the name is more work to me, it seems like, but that's okay. So what we're going to do is, and I bet you this is going to blow up, because I bet you it's going to be more work. I bet you I'm going to regret this, but we're learning. And I don't regret learning with all of you. So first, we want the first of the middle names. Check that out. We're already using this function again. It's nice. It's so beautiful and expressive. I love it. We use that first of the middle names, and then we're going to initialize the first middle name. And then we're just going to take the rest of the middle names, and we're going to use the unfortunate, difficult to use, complicated, frustrating slice method. And we're just going to slice everything after the first. And so I think middle names with only the first initialize. I mean, heck, we don't even need to use all the names. We could have just pulled the one name in there, but I'll bet you Jeff won't catch us in that. So I think this will be fine. Let's try this. Nope. So things have failed. What has happened here? Swaps first and last names has failed. And initialize name length. Undefined. Oh, so we're getting an undefined middle name here. I don't know. Again, maybe we could back it up, but I'll bet you we could get this to pass. We can even say, use the, is it called Elvis operator? I don't know. Optional chaining here. And I'll bet you if name is not there, this will just be false. And I'll bet you we'll get back to return name. Or rather, length will just be undefined. It's not greater than 1. So I'll bet you this will get, no, that's the no. So check it out here. Swaps first and last name. So now there's a space here because it's assuming there's a middle name. I knew this way would be more work. Jeff, you're killing me here, bro. All right. So let's see if we can make this work. And again, I would not expect you to do this on a real production program. I do not do this in a real production program unless I'm stuck and I really, really need to make that small step. So let's back up from that test and let's try something else. So if I found you can do this is kind of fancy. It's so much more work, man. So much more work. You could say if first of middle names is the case, then we initialize it and we spread it out. Otherwise, no. I just want to skip the element entirely if the first middle names is not there. And it's all getting so much worse. This is not good. This is not helping. Let's do it. Let's go back. I feel the accountability of all y'all watching with me. And I want to go back to the point of implementing this in the smallest way possible. Instead of assuming there was going to be this list of middle names. So let's go back and do it. I don't know how to give the code back to that shape, but let's do our best to get back there. If we were committing this in Git, I could have been committing this as we go along. It's a good idea even for code exercises. So we don't want the trimming. We just want swaps first and last names. So even swaps first and last names is not working. So let's actually take middle names out entirely here. Last name, first name, initialize not even needed. Let's delete that out. We can rewrite this stuff. That's fine. Swaps first and last names. Do we need this? Let's try to get rid of what we don't need. Yeah, we do need that. All right. Swaps first and last names. Great, we got this working. All right, we're back to green. This is another point. If you do find that you need to go back here and that you need to change things and tests are going red, left, and right, get to a spot where the tests are passing and then gradually build up from there. So we want to trim. Oh, you know what? We already have trim in the code still, so let's get rid of that. Tests are still passing. Now when we re-enable this, I'll bet you they should fail. And our code was different before, so really, I guess we could have backed up all the way with undo. All right, so we passed the trimming. Now we say initializes middle name. So we found that we had gone above and beyond in advance, that we did not need to assume that we were using an array. So what could we do instead? We could check and see if there's a middle name. So we could say, let's say let middle name, let last name, you say if name's length equals 3. So if the name length is 3, middle name equals names 1, last name equals names 2. Otherwise, last name equals names 1. So we are writing now more highly coupled code, but this is going to let us implement one step at a time. Actually, we don't even need middle name right away. Oh, yeah, but we do to pass this. So we can comment this out, see that this code is going to pass other than initializes middle name. All right, so now to initialize the middle name, we actually want to say middle initial equals middle name. How do we do that? Slice. Put the dot on. And then we stick middle initial. And we got to put a conditional on it now. We got to put a conditional to see about the space. So much work. Ah, okay. All right. Well, it's work to make simple code or something. All right. This is not critical. Love this exercise. I really appreciate it. I'm dramatizing the challenges. So we say here, if there is a middle initial, then we do put it with a space. Otherwise, we output empty string. We need a let middle initial. You could do these smaller steps in between when you have good test coverage, so you'll be able to refactor later. All right, so we initialize the middle name, and now we're successfully ignoring all possible other names to make sure that we're good to go. I see Bosh Maui, I hope I got the name a little bit close, saying hello in the chat. Hello, Bosh Maui, thank you so much for joining. Please let me know any questions you have as we're going through this test-driven development exercise together. Again, hopefully you can see up in the chat the link to the repo that you could pull down and try out yourself if you want. All right, we're now re-enabling this test we had before. We're hoping, beyond hope, that it will fail right away because that's the instructions we've been given. We're given the instructions, every time you enable a new test, it should fail. And otherwise, you wrote too much code at an earlier step. So let's re-enable this test and hope that it fails. It does, red. Our test is red, great. So now we can go back in. You know, another thing you learn in test-driven development and really following it this closely is to not be too closely attached to your code, to be ready to delete it and rewrite it in small bits if necessary. It just gets you used to this repeated process of solving these problems and things like that, and gets you used to the idea that your code does not need to be permanent. It needs to be flexible to be changed and updated as the requirements of your app change. Maybe not minute to minute, but week to week, probably. Vinay CS50 says, pre-built frameworks like Bootstrap is very heavy. So it is okay to use pre-built frameworks in companies. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, Bootstrap being a CSS framework, big fan of that. React being a JavaScript front-end framework, big fan of that. One can write front-end JavaScript applications from scratch. I would not do that. I'm all about building on top of abstractions. And so, yep, I'm a big fan of doing that. And this is an example of our code we're working on here is when you are writing some small functions from scratch, how to go about it. So, yep, I'm a big fan of frameworks. That's why we'll probably be TDDing some React or Ember or something else in the future, in a future stream. Hoping to do these streams every week. We'll see if it's interesting, if folks like it, if I have fun, if you have fun. Hopefully we'll be back. All right, we got our red test. We need to add the dot. No, we need to not add the dot if the name is just a single letter. And that's where we had that conditional in there. I'm not going to write... Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and write that. Const initialize, because we found that we needed that. Name. We say if name length greater than 1, return this, else return name. Name. So we're going to initialize. Middle initial is initialize middle name. I believe this will pass the test. It does. Great. All right, now we're back. Julia Louis Dreyfus, and we're hoping that the test will fail. I think it will. I think we've worked so hard to make the test fail that I think it will. And it does. But this is something important to think about. Like, if you're really never going to get multiple middle names in a production application, do you need looping code? Do you need the extra abstraction and the map and stuff like that? Like, and if you do need that looping code, you need to have a test that drives you there, that covers that case to make sure it works the way you expect. So TDD is all about just very clearly, carefully specifying just what your code is doing and no more. So that's why I like this exercise, to push us to write the minimal code. We'll see. I don't necessarily... Oh, we only have a couple more tests, so it is possible. I'm going to try to end it about an hour. It's possible we'll get done if I stop blabbing. So let's go. All right, so now we have multiple middle names, and now we have a test that is going to drive us to initialize each of them. So now we're going to say const middle names, and we say name dot slice 1, -1, I think, to skip the first and last elements. And now we're going to say const middle initials equals middle names map initialize. Maybe I should even change that to say turn into initials, because that developer is going to think initialize is something else. So now we're going to say, so we've got our middle initials. And so how do we do this? We have first name. Let's go ahead and do our const names other and last equals first name, middle initials. Maybe that, it's not names. Maybe that name is not great, but let's see. Join with a space. Think this will probably pass the tests. Oh, nope. The last name I'm getting is not correct. And that makes sense because I was just hard coding that to that. I've got to use our last function. Got our last function. It's so complicated. It's not complicated. It's useful. It's helpful. It's expressive. That didn't work. Our last function didn't work. How can that be? Julia Scarlett Elizabeth Louis Dreyfus, getting our last name. Oh, but it's if name's length is equal to 3. So you know what? I think we can just say const last name equals last names, because I don't think we need these conditions anymore. You know, really talented TDD people could probably take smaller steps than this and be less messy. I'm not claiming to be the best at this. I'm just trying to do it. I've gotten benefit from TDD. You don't have to be perfect to do TDD. All right, so with these changes, our tests pass. Now that we have a test that is driving us to initialize multiple middle names, we've implemented and gotten it to do it. So now we have first name, middle names. Let's refactor this code by reorganizing it to make a bit more sense. We've got our names there. Maybe we'll put our middle initials up here, and then we'll do our formatting stuff down here. And now we don't have any conditions in there other than the bailing out early if there's only one name. We got our condition here. That is maybe fine and maybe good. I think that's a nice good function. Okay, cool. We're back on track. Let's keep going. Next test. It appends suffixes to the end. This should fail. This seems like a new circumstance, a new condition. Junior Martin LK. So, what's a suffix? A suffix, it seems like from this test, is something that comes after a comma. So we'll split off suffixes first, and we'll stick them on the end. A suffix. It says suffix is plural, but our test is one. So even maybe even appends a suffix might be a more precise test name. Jeff doesn't know, so I'm going to go ahead and change that test name to appends a suffix to the end. And I think the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to say names before suffix suffix equals name split comma space. So if there's a comma space, this will probably break all our other tests as well, though. What happens? Let's just see what happens here. I'll bet you our other tests are going to fail. Yeah, I didn't like that. All right, you know what? I have an idea. Let's make a names before suffix variable. In fact, let's do this. Let's take it back. Let's take it back to where things are passing, and let's refactor. Everything other than this last test is passing. All right, so now we're back to the passing test. So now we know we need a names before suffix. And we'll just assign name to that, which is maybe enough for now. No. Yeah, name before suffix, singular. It's a string, and that's what I want. Yeah, see, I was already making other mistakes in there. All right. Name before suffix is equal to name. You know what? I think... I don't know if I need to put this condition before or after that. So to keep things moving, let's put it at the top. Name before suffix equals name. And in fact, I'm going to do let name before suffix, and then we'll assign it. This is very silly. Oops, I resized that window too much. I wouldn't usually write this way, but in preparation for refactoring, I totally would write this way. So everything's still passing. So now let's activate this test, and now I think we're in a better shape. What we can do is to say if name, we could say const, what suffix? This could use refactoring afterwards. So we'll say name before suffix, suffix equals name.split on this. And if there is a no suffix, then name before suffix is just the full name. So I guess maybe we could have put that in the previous step as well. But then down here, we're going to say suffix, and if there is a suffix, I think we need to do this, comma, space. Otherwise, empty string. I'll bet this will pass it. And I'm not fully confident. It does. Great. So yeah, so if suffix is not there, then the name before suffix is really just the whole name, and we'll work with that from there. So that's great. We got one more test. Let's see if we can make it. This is so close. Throws when name contains 2 commas. All right, well, it seems like I could probably catch that somehow. So names should not have 2 commas, at least according to this exercise. So let's, this is probably going to be a messy way to do it. Maybe we could refactor more after this. Let's call this to extraneous comma segment, and let that. Then we say if extraneous comma segment throw new error. Actually, throw. Can I just throw? Do you have to pass something to throw? Let's find out. Let's do minimal. Seems that JavaScript says you have to pass something to throw. Can I throw null? Is that minimal? I can throw null. That passes. That succeeds. I think this test is not good enough because to throw could be anything. So I think it's usually good to say new exception and to say name cannot contain, may only contain a max of 1 comma. This isn't Java, it's errors. Throw errors. So now let's see if this test fails. That doesn't look right. Pretty sure we're not throwing that. So let's find out. Let's check Jest's documentation. Maybe I can do that in here. Yeah, enable Jest. To throw. Error. Must wrap the code in a function. It's wrapped in a function. An argument to test the specific error is thrown. Regular expression throwing error object. Error message is equal to the message property of the object. Well, it looks like a regular expression or string would help. So maybe the API of toThrow, we can learn about it more. But now we say, oh, we should throw an error that has this string. And so we're going to throw. Can we just throw the string? Probably not. Oh, well, apparently that. And then if ESLint told us we needed to throw an error object, then that would be fine. So cool. So we're at the end of our time together. So this could stand to do some more refactoring. This is a long function now. Could use some simplicity. Some of these real edge cases around the suffixes, probably that could be handled and pulled away and we just get something nice back that didn't involve these lets and things being assigned to later. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to work on this on my own and I'm going to post up my final version of it and put it in the video notes so that you can check it out there. So yeah, I want to thank again. I had a lot of fun going through this. I was challenged, flustered you might say at times, but I was really glad to be challenged this way and I hope you were enlightened by that to empathize with my frustration, but maybe also learn and kind of get enjoyment out of really taking those small steps. After being challenged this way, I have some tools to reach for to take smaller steps next time. So thank you again to Jeff Langer for creating this exercise. Thanks to John Reed for letting me know about it. I would like to invite all of you to join me next week. What is next week? Today is the 15th, so it would be the 22nd. If I'm remembering right, Tuesday, December 22nd, 5 p.m. Eastern again. I've got another test-driven development exercise. I'm very excited about this one. This is one using random values that I ran across, and it was so interesting to me that I wanted to share it on the stream. So we're going to see how you can test random values in tests and see the benefits of a certain approach to that's going to help out a lot. So yeah, I would encourage y'all, give me a follow. I would love to hear from you. If you go to codingitwrong.com, my website, right up at the top, you'll see a link to my Twitter feed, Twitch stream where you can find me here if you're not watching this on Twitch right now, YouTube where all of the recordings of my past streams go, as well as my blog where I blog mostly about programming, sometimes about other things as well. I would love for y'all to send me questions. Any questions you have on testing, any questions you have on test-driven development, JavaScript or other languages, I'll answer it if I can at all. I can email you an answer, tweet you an answer. We can answer it on the stream if you want. Would love to do that. Would love some challenges. Please, if you are hostile to test-driven development, please send me a challenge, something you think it is stupid to test drive, and I would like to see if I agree here or if I can find a way that's helpful to test drive it. So would love to hear from y'all. Love to be helpful and just connect to real-world examples that'll be helpful. So thanks again to everybody who joined on the stream, Daydream, Vinay CS50, Bosch Maui. Thank y'all so much. Anybody that was listening that didn't speak in the chat, still very glad you're here. Folks checking out the recording afterwards, thank you so much. I appreciate it. We'll be back next time. Everybody be safe out there. We got vaccines now. Hopefully we're going to make some progress on this dumb pandemic. Please be safe. Please help one another out. And we'll hopefully catch you next week. Thanks so much. See ya.